Hello and welcome. In today's video, we're going to talk about SOQL, Salesforce Object Query Language, and this video is catered towards admin. So if you have never coded before, do not worry. It is actually super straightforward once you actually get the concept behind how we query the data from Salesforce. Before we get into today's topic, let's talk about why it is important for even admins to know a little bit of SOQL and your way around figuring out how to query data from Salesforce, which is not reports and list view. Because let's say if you get asked a question on, hey, how many of my opportunities are closing this year? So obviously as an admin, first thing you'll do is create a list view. Right now you're creating a list view, that's the extra step. Or you'll create a report or export a report. Regardless of how you get that data, you'll basically create something, and that takes a lot longer, especially if you have a lot of data in your Salesforce. A list view could take forever to load, and also you'll have to export it out to be able to tell. You can't just tell count of that. There's no good way to do that faster. Obviously there are different ways to do it, but once you add that power of SOQL on top of everything, it will really make you so powerful to be able to query anything you want from the database. Even some of the objects that you can't query or can't figure out using reports and list views, SOQL will let you do that. You can even query the objects in the background that you don't see from tabs or any other place. What if there is not a tab for an object, but you still need to know what records it has? Then you'll have to create a tab, then do the list view. So it's just another skill set that you can add, which will really help you save a lot of time, and it's also really powerful. All right, so now let's get straight to it. So there are different ways you can actually access where you can query the data. So a couple of ways I'm going to show you is, number one, and this is how I started. So there is your developer console. So if you go to setup, developer console, and there is no need to worry about whether you're doing it right or wrong, because literally you cannot mess anything up in the environment. So let's say if you did something wrong while querying data, nothing is going to happen. You're not breaking anything. So once you're here in the developer console, in your case, you might not have any of these tabs open. I have them because it's something else I was working on. But here, query editor, this is where you want to be at, and you can start querying your database right here. And I will get into the syntax, but first I wanted to explain from where you can access this. So in the developer console, you can go inside query editor, and this is where you can type things. And just to show you, I'm just going to say select ID from contact, and it should bring up the data here. Now, SOQL in this developer console, you cannot extract it out of Salesforce. It's just more like for view only. You can copy paste things as well. Now, next thing is you can use Workbench. So for Workbench, go to workbench.developerforce.com, and this would bring up a screen. And if you're already logged in through a different tab, it should already take you there. And if you're not able to access this, consult your admin to give you access, or maybe you have a security setting in your org. So check that out. And once you are here, you can say there's queries. So there's info, queries, data, migration. You can go to queries and click SOQL queries. And it will tell you about Visual Studio Code. Since this video is only for admins, I'm not going to get into that at the moment. But so here you can say, okay, and this is a very friendly UI, so no need to worry about anything here. You can just say, okay, which objects I want to query? I want to query account, right? And then it will bring all the fields here. And if you just click one of the fields, you can see that it automatically types the query for you. And you can command in Mac and control, I believe, in Windows to multi-select. And as you do that, it will start multi-selecting your, adding the fields for yourself. So it's a little bit easier than the developer console, but you may not always have access to use this for security reasons. And then if you wanted to add something else, you can also use these features to filter out accounts based on certain criteria. And then another way is also you can use some extensions like this one, and I made another video on this. So basically it's called Salesforce Inspector, and you can do data export, and that will also bring you to similar kind of format. But here you'll just say, and this is actually a lot more easier, especially if you're admin and if you have never coded before. As you start typing things out, it will populate it for you, which is really helpful. If I wanted to start typing name, it will bring me all the fields name. So this is another way. And there are other ways, like you can use data loader. And this is another reason why you need to understand SOQL, is because even when you're trying to use data loader, sometimes it's good to have that information about query. So if I'm just saying account, I want to extract all the accounts, right? Sure. And see, if I start typing it here or clicking this, and it will start putting the commas and basically generating the query for me. Okay, so now we looked at all the different ways you can use or access that feature, SOQL. Now let's look at how do we code in SOQL and what does it really mean. So I'm gonna stick to this one since this is a lot more user-friendly. So let's look at what does it mean. So you'll always have a select statement. Oops. So select. The moment you say select, that means you are going to use SOQL. And after select, some keywords are from, right? So these things remain the same in any object you are using. So you'll start with select, and they will be from whichever object you're using. So let's say if you wanted to query in the same example, you wanted to know what are the opportunity closing this year. So you'll just say opportunity, because that's the object. Okay, so select and from are common, and then these things change based on the object that you're using. Now there's another one called where, and this is just like English, correct? So you have where. Now what is the condition we are trying to do? In our case, the condition is that closing this year. What does that mean? You want to use close date field. It's just like using your report builder or list view, because even there you'll be using filters. So think of this as filter. So you start typing close date. So it does really great job of putting that out there. I'm just going to type it in. Close date equal to. Now in your reports, I think you put this year, and even in list views you can do this year. Similar to that, but the syntax is a little bit different in SOQL. And I'll share the documentation for this. So there's a whole documentation about the date fields particularly. And since I'm using this extension, it will tell me what to use. This underscore year. This is a SOQL specific syntax. So this is where things get a little bit SOQL specific. I don't think you use this for report. Okay. Now what are the fields? So sometimes people will just ask you, okay, I just need the count. I really don't care about other columns. And that is where it's really powerful. So count, you can just use count and add two brackets. So now this is a SOQL specific functionality. In reports, what are you going to do? You're going to have to run the report, then scroll all the way down, hide the details, then look at the count of that, how many opportunities are there. All I need to do is do this. I think so. I only have 8 records. So no data exported, because if I'm doing a count, I don't need to worry about exporting data. I just need the number, and that I can immediately tell to my client or business that, hey, you have 8 records that are closing this year. Not only that, it's also going to let you use quarter feature. So if you have last year, so you can have a lot of different ways you want to next quarter or last quarter. So really powerful. And definitely check out the documentation and let me know if you have more questions on the date specific fields. Now let's talk about what else can you do here. I'm just gonna remove the filter. So filter means anything after where, that's the filter, and anything in between select and from, that is your columns. So even in reports, you are gonna drag and drop the columns, right? So that's the same thing we are doing here, but we are actually typing it out, all the fields that you need. So maybe ID is good to have. And that's another thing, reports don't let you put 18 character ID. So put ID. Maybe I need the opportunity name. Maybe I need the amount, close date, and so on. So let's stop there. So that is my query. And export. So that's going to bring me all the opportunities. That's the ID, name, amount, close date. You can copy this out. You can just say copy Excel format and then copy it in Excel. Same thing you can do in a Workbench as well. So if you go to Workbench, go to opportunity, sticking to the same requirement. So this is a little bit painful if you have a lot of objects, but if you wanted to use the UI, maybe let's type O. It lets you type one first character or first letter, so opportunity, right? So see, you can directly do count of opportunities, and that will say 52. You can also add where here, so you can either type, if you are starting to get comfortable, you can type it yourself, where close date is equal to. Now this is less helpful because you'll have to know what to use here as opposed to the extension. This is one way to do it. Another way is you can say filter, and I don't use this much often, so I'm going to try this to do here. Filter results by. Now what I'm going to say is close date equals this. See how it started typing out for me the moment I started this here. Okay, and then if I wanted to change this, I will just do fields here, amount, and then you can just select command and few more fields, whatever you need, and that's it. And another thing here in Workbench is if you wanted to just view the data, you can just say query and it would view all the data for you. Or maybe you wanted to export it out of Salesforce, then you can just say bulk CSV and hit that again, query. And what that will do is bring up a zip file which you can download, and this will have a CSV for that data. Now let's look at the same thing in developer console, where you can start typing select ID from. It's not case sensitive, so you can even leave it from all lower cases, but it's just good practice to have follow a naming or coding convention. So select ID from opportunity and same thing. Okay, now that we have seen how to use SOQL from different tools and how to add columns to it, how to filter different records out, how to get a count of records, let's look at how to use or get relational fields into SOQL, because chances are a lot of times we only get asked about, okay, how many opportunities are closing this year, but I also need to know the account name, what is the account revenue, and so on and so forth. So anytime you are using getting the data from parent record, so in this case opportunity is the child, account is the parent, so same way you would use in formula fields, it's the same exact concept. So you'll say account, account ID will actually only give you ID of the account, but a lot of times we need the fields from account. So in that case, you'll say account dot whatever fields you need from there. In this case, I need the name and I need the annual revenue for that account. So if you have written a formula field, it's exact same concept. Remember, from child to parent, you cannot do the reverse. You cannot come from parent to child like this. There's a different way to do that. Okay, so that's for standard objects. What if I wanted to do the same thing for custom objects? The only thing that will change for custom object is instead of using straightforward account, you'll be using __r. Let's take a look at an example. So I have an object called milestone _c. So that's a custom object. And I believe it has a relationship to opportunity. So if I wanted to grab all the milestones with their opportunities, so I'll say opportunity R. So it's not _c, but it's _r because R means relation. We are going to the parent. And then I may want the name of the opportunity and maybe the ID. So if I need the ID, I'll just say opportunity C, because that is like account ID. Because it's a custom field, we have __c here. And so that's the basically relational concept. So going from child to parent. And you can also go deeper. So let's say if there was opportunity R and maybe I wanted to do owner lookup. So maybe I wanted to see who the owner of that opportunity was. I could also say owner dot name. So see how owner doesn't have _r because owner is again a standard field on opportunity object. Opportunity _r, opportunity C is a custom field on milestone, and we are using R because it's a relation field. In this case, we don't need that because it's a standard object or standard field. Okay, so that's how you can go even more deeper. I think you can go 4 or 5 times deeper, but I never had the need to do that until now. Okay, so that is how you get to parents fields, and you can export this out. So really powerful. You don't have to create report types for this. You can literally just run a query, export the data, and you're done. Couple of other things about SOQL. So in this case where we used opportunity close date greater than this year, let's say if I also wanted to know greater than this year and amount is greater than 50,000. So just like in list views and reports, you can combine different filters, right? So same way you can do that here as well. So you can say and amount is greater than, so same syntax, 50,000. Now in this case, I just used 50,000 because it's a number field. I didn't need to put anything like inverted commas or something. So, but let's say if I was interested in, so this will give me something, maybe not because I don't have data, but this is the right syntax. So let's say if I wanted to know ID from account where name equal to, if a name is a string or name is a text field, then I have to use something like this, inverted commas or single quote, ABC. I don't know if I have an account, but that's the syntax. Okay. Now, what if you wanted to say contains, where name contains test, for example? So contains is similar to like in SOQL. So you'll use like, add this syntax because it's still a string or text field. And then for something like that, you will use test, and then you will use a percent. So what percent means is if it is starting from test, doesn't matter what's behind it, it will still catch them all. So it's like a catch-all thing, just like you use asterisks on search results. In SOQL, we use this percent symbol. So it looks like I have one. Let's say I just really was interested in any account that has T. I don't recommend using this in real scenario because if you have so many accounts with T, that's not good. Like always slows down your query. And I can probably do a whole different video on what to do and what will be faster results. But for this scenario, see, anything that has T in it, it's going to find them because I'm using percent front and back. If I just wanted to know what accounts start with T, I will do that. It looks like I have only one account starting with T. So super powerful again. You can get pretty crazy and pretty deeper in how you want to query, and you can combine things and annual revenue greater than 10,000. And also you can do conditional like this. So maybe you wanted to do something like this. You can add brackets and go even more. So all those things that's possible in list and reports, you can do this here as well. You can add conditions, combine conditions, also use brackets and do things like in formula fields basically. So anything after where, this is where you're adding filters as you need. Anything before from is all your columns. Okay. And to finish it off, let's look at the documentation, and the documentation is really nice, and it will give you more examples. You can use expressions, like I said. Things like there are also functions like this one, which we didn't go over, but let me know if you wanted me to go deeper into date functions. So there are some pretty powerful techniques to get the data that you need. So yeah, play around with this. You can copy paste this query directly into your tool and see what it returns back. And all you need to do is just practice it. Don't worry about getting it right the first time. And if you make mistakes, that's okay. It will tell you immediately that your syntax is wrong. So don't worry about messing things up. Hope this was helpful. Thank you so much for watching.